Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. It is the Tuesday edition, and somehow I have to figure out which days are which these days now that we finished the State Purposes live lecture series. This week there was something fascinating, interesting, and surprising. Our good friend, the designer, has sent me a YouTube video, and it got my brain starting to work. Welcome aboard. Today we are going to talk about strategy and some of the other things that we're working on in order to improve our businesses. So let's begin. All right, now we are basically here. As you can see way at the top here, beacon, right? So what am I doing here on YouTube? What am I doing in general? Why am I broadcasting? Why am I using outbound marketing? Why am I sending my message to the masses? My question is there somebody out there that can be a coach like me? I think that is really what I've been trying to say to so many people that I've talked to and that I've coached and that I've worked with in the past. And thus far, it's just been goose egg, nobody. So you talk to 400 people have improved in various different ways in their businesses, but nobody wants to be a coach. Overall vision, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get better at storytelling and providing educational content. What's my current mission? My current mission is to develop patterns that can be packaged into small and large courses. All right, so what do we have next? If you remember, you can check out the playlist. It's called State Purposes Live Lecture Series. In that live lecture series, I was able to go through the work of Tom Buchholz. I went through the book Create Crucial Insight. Specifically, I went to the chapter called State Purposes. And we went through this whole entire checklist, concept, framework, story in order to understand something about yours truly, to understand what is, we need a representation of my motivational structure. All right, so we broke down the motivational structure into having a vision. And in order to have that vision, we also need these prerequisites. And then there's some kind of process that links together, putting together these prerequisites and also achieving the vision. And then, well, I've talked about this many times. I don't want to talk about this today. I just want to show how we are progressing. And then eventually I started asking this question, like, how do I get more hours as a coach? How can I improve as a coach? And the hard thing for a coach is that you have to market yourself, meaning you have to learn marketing, and also you have to get experience, meaning you have to find customers. Well, how are you going to find customers unless you know how to do marketing? And how are you going to also find customers if you don't have any experience? All of these things lead me to this concept that we should be developing some kind of coaching platform with student teachers. And then I explained the theories of Stephen Covey, how you need to move from dependent to independent. So basically you need to make goals and work toward those goals proactively. And then eventually you go from independent to interdependent, meaning you start to learn how to align your goals with other people. Now, this is also like a little roadmap. You can see we start from the left side. I started reading Tom's book, and then I started teaching people Tom's book via YouTube and directly. I think I have more than this. I didn't edit this recently. And then, well, eventually I need to create the courses and the authoring. Okay, so who's the Prime Minister? Now, if we go down here, you can see, boom, 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 we got the Prime Minister over here. So he's building a product. He's building courses, authoring, and interface. What are we talking about? Coaching, courses, authoring, interface. We're talking about this. So here is the structure of the product offering. You have the courses here on the left, and then eventually you turn those courses into videos, and then maybe there's some exercises. Eventually you go into authoring, and then finally, when we have this business, when we have this coaching platform with student teachers, then we need to introduce this idea of the interface, the window interface, so that the student teachers can teach other students without too many hiccups. All right, so that's the prime minister. Now, and also you can see that that is product development. After you have a product, then next you have to start, you have to set up your website, you have to start the outreach process, which means sales, funnel, marketing strategies, and that's where the designer comes in. You can see down here, we have this person called the designer, which you saw earlier. And what she's focusing on is automating with AI tools. So use AI tools for automating processes of marketing and sales. Good. And then now when we jump into interdependence on the other side of this vast chasm, then we need to find teachers to add to my website with courses, right? I'm looking for other coaches I can add to my website. And this means we're talking about the influencer. Who's the influencer? The influencer here is Roboslav, half robot, half Slav. So he's the influencer. He is posting messages in the digital space. So do you see the difference between automating with AI tools in order to do marketing and sales? So these are processes, the processes of marketing and sales, whereas this is creating messages that attract an audience and sell product. There is obviously some connection between those two things, but they are also different things. And then over here, we have the product. So when I started looking at it today, it just seems like, well, what did you do? So you basically lined up, what are your next three things? So finishing your products, developing your website, developing some sales funnel marketing strategies, and then starting to reach out to other people. And then you embodied them in these three different roles. And now we are focusing on, well, here's the product. And then what's next? What are the things that we're going to do with each of these people? So we're embodying them, and then we are getting them to going to work. This reminds me of an old story that our law professor told us. This was sometime in, I guess, the first or second year of law school in China, in Shanghai. The teacher was speaking Chinese, and he was talking about there was some really famous fa guan, some judge, and when the judge was a child, what he would do, he would find mice and he would kill the mice, and then he put all the mice into like their positions as if they were in a courtroom, and then there might be like one live mouse. And what he would do is he would give all the arguments on one side of the bench. He would pretend he's the mouse, the mice on that side of the room, and then he would pretend he is the defending lawyer, and then he would give all the arguments from the defending lawyer, and then he would go back to the prosecutor, and then back to and then finally he would be the judge, and then I guess he really enjoyed killing the mice. Anyways, the point is that if you're able to use your imagination and then embody the various positions within a thinking framework, then you're going to be able to get the perspective from all of those different people. And it's even better if you can actually talk to real people. So imagine I'm actually talking to a real person called the designer, and I'm talking to a real person called the influencer, and I'm talking to a real person called the prime minister. Wouldn't that be great? So what's going on? Today, the name of this video is called The Easiest Way to Understand the Word Strategy. You might be asking, why did it take you 10 minutes to get to that word, strategy? Actually, it was a surprise. So the designer sent me a video, and let's start with Brian Tracy. The designer did not send me a Brian Tracy video, but Brian Tracy, when you listen to his videos, and if you've listened to his videos over a long period of time, I mean, not long videos, but I mean, I heard a video 5 years ago, I heard a video 10 years ago, I heard a video 15 years ago, I heard a video 20 years ago. He has the same, one strand is always the same. And what he says is that you should wake up each morning and write down your goals in like the first person, like meaning I am earning, and then as if you're already accomplishing those things. I'm earning $50,000 per year. I'm earning $50 million per year. I am what? I'm driving a brand new whatever car. I am living in a whatever house. I am no audio. Are you sure? Are you sure? Yeah, there's definitely audio, so you're gonna need to check your device. Because yeah, there's definitely audio, so you're gonna need to check your device. There we go. All right, so what Brian Tracy says is that you need to write down your goals every day. What are we talking about? So the very first stage of strategy is this thing called an aspiration. And if you go into Tom's work, it's basically the same. So whenever you go into any of these checklists, it doesn't matter. You can see that this one has a hyperlink, this styles has a hyperlink, tendencies has a hyperlink. I would say, and resources has a hyperlink. I would say the one I understand the least of all these checklists is tendencies. And the reason is because it combines 3 different checklists together. But the point that I want to show you right now is not like the typical checklists or what this is actually about. It's actually this line right here, endeavor. Every single time you see the work of Tom Buchholz, every single checklist he talks about begins with this concept called endeavor. What does that mean? It means that you can't begin to use the checklists unless you have an aim. You first have to define what you want. You have to decide what is your aspiration. What are you going after? What is the vision? What is the goal? What is the dream? What is it that you wish you had? And Brian Tracy says that you should write it in the first person as if you already achieved it. But it's the same idea. And then Tom, he goes even here. So this is actually his whole framework. All right, so you can see here, even here, you have endeavor up here. And then every endeavor has these 3 endeavor elements. You're going to create the effects by running the agendas, and the agendas are based on the potential that you're trying to shape. So you shape that potential, you use that potential, you use your agendas, and then you create the effects. And then, okay, so these are the 9 steps, and then all these 9 steps, they correspond to other of his checklists. Great. Doesn't tell me what strategy is. So what exactly is strategy again? All right, strategy number 1, according to the video the designer sent me, is the aspiration. What is the aspiration? What is it that you aspire to do? And if you don't know what you aspire to do, I would follow the advice of Brian Tracy, because Brian Tracy says every morning, wake up and write down your goals. And what's going to happen over 1 week or 1 month or 1 year is that there's going to be little tweaks. And the goal will become more clear. In fact, well, I don't have it on this screen. All right. Next step is let out the logic. So step number 1, after you have decided on your aspiration, is you need to say, here is where we're choosing to play. Here is where we're choosing to play. And the question is, who else is competing for those customers? Here is where we're choosing to play. It doesn't matter what football team you are, or basketball player you are, or whatever sport you're playing, there's always an arena. There's always a stadium. There's always a field. And you have to decide what is the field that you want to play on. I think that Michael Jordan was probably deciding that I want to be playing in the championship game. That is the field where I want to play. I want to be playing in the playoffs, and I also want to be playing in the championship game. And who else is competing for that game? So then you can start to list the other big players, the big teams. Who are we up against? All right, and how are we actually going to list the people, the companies who are competing for those customers? This is where we can use the top part of Porter's 5 forces. The top part of Porter's 5 forces, I think Porter's 5 forces, it has 2 sections. It should be like Porter's 3 forces and then Porter's other 2 forces. All right, so here we go. So on the left side, we have existing competitors. Next is the new competitors, and then we also have substitutes. So what are we talking about? Let's talk about ketchup, okay? I like ketchup. I went and I bought some ketchup today. The question is, who are the existing competitors? So here in Georgia, there's like 5 different brands. There's some Russian brand, there's some Ukrainian brand, there's some Georgian brand, there's some European brand, there's some American brand, there's all these different brands. They're already existing. So there is a rivalry among the existing competitors and then new competitors. So who's trying to enter this market? It's called foreign direct investment. Who's investing here? Maybe they want to produce the ketchup here and ship it out, but we're focused more on who actually wants to be selling ketchup in this area. And then finally, what are the substitutes? So in fact, I have a bottle of it's like it's a big jar of tomato paste. And I haven't figured out the magic of how to turn tomato paste into ketchup. I suppose you add a little sugar and a little salt, but I'm probably missing a few ingredients. But there are obviously substitutes. Maybe you want to put mayonnaise on your whatever instead of ketchup, or maybe you want to do some fry sauce or something else, barbecue sauce, Worcestershire sauce. All right, so there it is. This is let's just review. So at the very top, we got what is the aspiration that we have. Here is where we're choosing to play. Once you've decided where you're choosing to play. Now remember that here is where we're choosing to play is going to have a connection with the aspiration that we have. Let's say that you are like Amazon.com. So everybody knows there's this new Chinese company that is going all around the world and they're just sucking up customers. Why? What is the aspiration that TMO has? Probably their aspiration is to be the lowest cost provider on earth for certain products. The lowest. Now, once you've decided that you're going to be the lowest cost provider on earth, then all the rest of your systems are going to have to change in order to reach that aspiration. And where are we going to play? We are going to play in Europe. We are going to play in America. We are going to play in Africa. And who exactly? So who else is competing for those customers? So that is so Amazon is competing for those customers. What makes you different than Amazon? How are you going to reach the competitors? And you've already explained that. The aspiration we have is we're going to reach the customers of Amazon because our products are going to be cheaper. Our products are cheaper because everything down the line is optimized to allow us to deliver those products more cheaply. But obviously, there's going to be more than that for competitors. Next, how is it that we choose to win, to serve those customers better than other options? So that's in business, that's really what it's all about. Here is where we choose to win. You have to pick specifically how you're going to win. And it sounds like that to serve those customers better than other options. This sounds like the aspiration. How are we going to win? Our aspiration is connected with how are we going to win. We are going to serve our customers better by providing them with cheaper options. Always cheaper. Like think about Walmart. Better prices, always the lowest price, always the best price, always. We guarantee, you don't need to waste your time. Don't go anywhere else. Every time you come to our store, we promise you our price is going to be the cheapest. And that is how we will serve you. And if that is what you're looking for, then you are our customer. All right, so that's the first half, right? The aspiration that you have, it's about what your company wants to be in the market. And then you explain where you're going to play, who else is playing, and then how are you going to beat those guys. More specifically, how are you going to beat them? You're going to need capabilities. Capabilities. We need to have in place money and the allocation of money. And I think this has to do with managerial accounting. So if we go back to our managerial accounting days, then the question is, which processes do we do in-house? And which processes do we hire from other companies? Anyways, the question is, what capabilities did they have which we didn't? What does it mean? What capabilities did they have which we didn't? So it's saying, okay, so if you lost, let's say that Michael Jordan lost one of the championship games. The question is going to go right down to, all right, so what specifically was the capability which they did not have and which led to the loss? Every time you lose, every time your business loses to a competitor, every time your competitor sells something that you do not sell, the question is, what capability did they have which we did not have? And then if you're able to get that capability, then likely you'll be able to win in the future. Because, it's easy to say, well, it's just money. Well, yeah, okay, but it's the allocation of money. Any kind of resource, it's always going to be some allocation of money. Okay, it's not actually true, because if we go to Tom's work and then we click the resources, then skills. Okay, you can buy skills, you can buy data, you can buy the opportunity, you can use money to work with entities. Reputation, it's very hard to buy a reputation. Loyalties, you kind of have to make those decisions, but that's also allocation of money. Funds is money, infrastructure is money, freedom. A lot of it has to do with money. All right, so let's go down to the last one, the management systems. The very last one is management systems. Which management systems did they have which we didn't? So it might not necessarily be a capability, although you could say a management system is a capability. And that's why we're going to accomplish the aspiration that we have. All right, so that's strategy 101. Strategy is simply first explaining the aspiration that you have, telling everyone where you're choosing to play, understanding who else is competing for those customers, explaining how you are going to win, which means how are you going to serve these customers better than other options, explaining your capabilities, meaning how much money do you have and how do you allocate that money, understanding when you lose, what were the capabilities that you needed, and then finally the management systems, understanding which systems and when you lose, and what are the management systems that you not have. And once you have all the management systems, you have the capabilities, you understand clearly how you're going to win, you understand where you're going to be playing in order to win, and therefore you reach that aspiration. That's why we're going to accomplish the aspiration which we have. All right, so it was a huge surprise because, as you remember in the last video, I was kind of a little bit crazy and a little bit emotional, and now suddenly the designer just jumped out of nowhere and says, hey, before we get going, let's understand the concept of strategy. All right, now let's do a little bit of housekeeping. So in the last video, we talked about Comment Club, and I was kind of thinking maybe today we were going to talk about Comment Club, but not quite today. Number two is we could talk about Prime Minister building his product. And so the question is, are you racing horses or laying bricks? Remember that video from a little while ago? It's really clear now that I need to start developing course number 2, which is a performance review. See, this is the performance review. It's called Recognizing Outcomes. And then this one is called Take Inventory. And what's the difference? So Recognize Outcomes is from 1 to more, and Take Inventory is from 0 to 1. And I was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But I feel like right now, more than ever, I want better outcomes. And I understand that my performance isn't peak. It's not at the best. And so the question is, how do I get myself to perform better? One thing I could do is use the actual course, and I can flush out the course. So actually hello from Minnesota. Hello. I mean, I've already tested this out with at least 30 people. So I've created this whole course, and I think maybe I should do another live lecture series and go through this whole course, and then after I finish flushing it out on YouTube, then I can record it again, but without looking like a crazy person. So yeah, so it's already finished, and now I think I'm gonna do that as a live lecture series. So I usually talk about 2 or 3 times a week. So what can I do then regarding planning? So one of the days a week I could do the product, and then the other day of the week, we could talk about AI tools used for marketing. And then another day of the week, we could talk about how to grow a message. I think there's some connection between these two, actually, because one place where I need to improve my performance is understanding messaging. Finally, I had a little chat with our are the next guy. So there's actually another guy on the team, and I call it network effect, workflow columns. Now, as you can see here, on the left-hand side, we have somebody who wants to create some software. And the software, the purpose of the software is to create some kind of network effect. So you have to develop the software. And the question is, how is the service user going to use your software? How is the service provider going to use your software? That's the actual. So here it is. So let's look at the service user and service provider stories. For example, we could talk about Uber, we could talk about coaching platforms, we could talk about artists. Next is the relationship or communication with the entities. So are you now communicating with those service users? Are you now communicating with those service providers? And then finally, how will we present our message, the marketing and the messaging? I think that the main focus right now is here. Because once your product development is finished, once you have some software, then you need to start communicating with potential users of the software. All right. And that takes us to our next step. So the question is why communicate with this person? Why communicate with this group? And then how are we going to communicate with this person? And how are we going to communicate with this group? But I also feel like this is connected with the work of the influencer. Because although the influencer in this context is creating messages that attract an audience and sell product, I think one of the main issues, and I'm going to close on this, it's that when you are presenting yourself, for example, on LinkedIn or on YouTube or something like that, you somehow have to get past the idea of outbound marketing. I have to get past the idea of just me talking to the big wide world out there. And I have to get down to the point where I'm actually talking to this person or this group. Otherwise, we'll never be able to transform our outbound marketing into an inbound marketing process. Great, so that is what I got for you today. And there you go. So thank you to the designer for her work this week, and we'll see you next time.